Hello, 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 once again, SVVR 2015. How's it going out there? So excited. Most of you must have missed the coffee carts, I understand. That's all right. All right, if we can have everyone come, settle down, get in the seats, we're going to get the next panel started. This is going to be an exciting one about the rise of consumer VR. So let's have our panelists and moderator just come on out. Let's everyone give them a warm round of applause as they come to the stage. Evidently, that round of applause was too weak, and they disapproved it. Let's try again. Let's go.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the first panel of what is sure to be a very exciting SVVR. Looking out here.
Wow.
It is
this light.
Totally amazing. It is totally amazing how much I can see the VR community has grown merely from the difference between SVVR last year and this year. Sorry, getting a little feedback.
I can't see how it's grown at all.
See, that's why you have one of these.
So we have a pretty awesome panel of people here who are going to talk to us about the rise of consumer VR. So we've all been talking about how consumer VR is coming, but there's now a bunch of really exciting targets on the board for some of the biggest hardware, that'll be launching anytime soon. This is some of the world's most advanced VR technology, and it's coming to consumers soon. And a lot of the people in the room are responsible for this, and a lot of the people on the panel here. And I'm going to introduce those folks. First, we have Clay Bavor, who is the Vice President of Product Management at Google, where he leads VR and apps, and joined Google in 2005, has been involved with a number of projects across the company, including Search, AdWords, and AdMob. We have Amir Rubin, who is the CEO of Sixense, and he has over 20 years of experience developing products in the fields of simulation, video games, virtual reality, and motion tracking. We have Palmer Luckey next to me here, who is the original founder and designer of the Oculus Rift. And before starting Oculus VR, he worked as an engineer at USC's Institute for Creative Technologies, where he contributed to research and development of virtual reality systems and head-mounted displays. And we also have Nick DiCarlo from Samsung. Nick is the Vice President of Products and Virtual Reality, and he's leading Samsung's VR efforts in the United States across channels, hardware, services, sales, and partnerships. And so with consumer VR really ramping up to this takeoff point, I want to understand, to start from you guys, what will be that moment where you felt that your work that you've contributed to has actually made consumer VR exist? So to give you an example of what I'm talking about, for me, consumer VR will be here when my friends who know very little about VR, they're just kind of general technology users, when they can go to a store, buy a headset, plug it into their computer, put it on, and we can play poker when we are spread out across the entire country. For me, that is like consumer VR is here. So I want to get an idea of where is that benchmark? What is that moment or experience for you guys? And Palmer, if you go ahead.
I don't know if I'd see it that far out, where for people to say that consumer VR is here. I don't know if you have to have people who are non-gamers, mainstream type people all doing things like playing poker socially. I mean, there's lots of consumer products that only target this small audience, and they do that for the lifespan of the entire company. Virtual reality, obviously, I think we all want it to become bigger, to go to a bigger audience, to provide a bigger audience so that developers can make more money, so they can pay their bills. But I think that as soon as there's products on the market that let people spend money on content, that let them buy a headset, use it at home, and start, buying things, I think that is my low benchmark for consumer virtual reality kind of being here, because up till now, up till the last couple of years, that's never really been the case.
For me, it all started as a reality. I felt we are here when Samsung came to us back in, I would say almost 2 years ago, with their 3D printed head mount with an S4 and basically saying to us, just try and you'll see what we are working on. And when we saw that, it was, for me, a clear message that, VR is here. It took a year later, and they released, the first Note 4 with the first Gear VR, together with the Oculus tech. And from that point on, I'm looking at what they're doing. I'm looking at what Google is doing with the first cardboard coming out and introducing it to the masses, and then the things that I'm looking forward from Google coming forward in the next few years. I'm basically saying every mobile phone from Note 4 going forward is a VR-enabled phone. Talking to Verizon, talking to AT&T, I asked them straight out, meeting them 3 weeks ago in New York in a big event, what will it take for you to give these head mounts for free, these headsets? And they're saying, we just need VR to be popular. We need some killer apps, and we'll definitely, if this helps us to sign people for a 2-year contract, we'll never stop it. And therefore, I'm looking at VR is here, and specifically to answer your use case. If you go back outside to the Sixense booth, and you'll see we have 3 players enjoying a lightsaber experience. One is shooting with a blaster, another one is defending with a lightsaber, and another one is spectating the experience of all. Social VR is here. Mobile is going to make it accessible to the to hundreds of millions of consumers in the next, couple of years. And therefore, I think it's time for everybody to accept that VR is a medium that is going to take a significant part of the overall digital media pie. All yours.
Yeah, I think that just to build on what Amir and Palmer said, if you think about it, the technology works. It works awesome. And now it's just like sort of consumer acquisition things like distribution and awareness. And apps, we've got, merchant paid apps. The JAM results are, overwhelming number of applications submitted to that. So it's really, really close. It's just more about awareness and distribution, I feel, at this point.
I guess I feel a little bit differently. I don't think there's going to be one line in the sand where we all say, oh my God, okay, consumer VR is here. I think it's, but we'll likely be on the other side of it when we see some intersection of, I think, ease of use. The thing needs to be easy to set up and use. A normal person, like not one of us, needs to be able to set it up and use it. It's got to be very high quality, and then the content's got to be there to bring you back, to give you a reason, to put these weird goggles on your face. And so I think I don't know what the outward sign of those 3 things intersecting exactly will be, but I kind of think we'll know it when we see it. And then for me personally, my goal, my college roommate studied sociology and religion and lives in North Carolina, and VR is about as far from the top of his mind as anything. And so I have my own kind of personal benchmark when he's got something that we all build and uses it. That'll be another moment. But I think that's further out, and I think, as Palmer says, we're not that far from the intersection of those first 3 things.
Just going back to what Clay just said, I have a personal goal. Some of you might have heard it, and it really comes down to my wife. The moment I see my wife willingly putting the headset on, we made it. All of us made it.
Just for the record, that's already happened. I've got a great wife, and she,
We'll all have been successful.
So by Amir's benchmark, we're already there.
And
at least in my household.
I just need your roommate's address.
That could be arranged. That would be good. That would be good. I would like that.
So that actually gives us a really nice segue into my next question. This was touched on in the keynote that we just heard earlier. The demonstrative power of VR is like incredible. You can put someone into a VR headset who's never tried it before, and they can come out and say, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I've never seen anything like this before. When can I buy it? But the challenge is actually doing that. So everybody in this room is likely to have had that moment and maybe even introduced other people to that. But there's this kind of fundamental issue with how do you scale that so that everybody has a chance to see this. In the world of video games, you can go to a Best Buy and you can play the latest game on a little kiosk there on a console. Do you guys think that in-store VR demonstrations is going to be crucial to the adoption of these products?
I can take that because that's exactly what we are doing now. We just announced 3 weeks ago a partnership with a company called Sapien Nitro. Sapien Nitro is a company that created or built approximately 30% of the world e-commerce. And the reason we did that is that we are looking forward to handle exactly that problem, the problem of getting consumers introduced in location-based, in the retail space, to VR. And when I say retail space, I'm looking at solving problems for Home Depot, REI, typical brands that have an issue with telling the story of the brand, telling the story of the products and how to use the products, and helping, Samsung, a different side of Samsung, not the Nick's side, but the appliances, such a boring product, but still, there's a lot of issues that you need to know about it before you know.
Wash your clothes automatically.
Yeah, come on.
I know, and my wife actually liked that product. But for me, it's solving problems and enabling all these location-based or brick-and-mortar retailers to get VR, which is a better way to train. We've been doing training in VR for over 7 years now. And training for welding, training for operating crane, handling hazardous material. We have developers in all those and actually applications, products out in the market. And my point is, we'll put these kiosks out at all these retailers, at all these locations, and that's the way people will realize VR is really a better way to interact with digital media from every aspect of life, not just entertainment. It's a better way to educate, it's a better way to train in education, it's a better way to health and rehabilitation, it's a better way to do almost everything. So therefore, for me, yes, it's going to go in retail, it's going to educate people, people are going to be so impressed, they're going to go home and talk to people. We're making it also social. So from the location base, you will be able to call using, everything we're doing is using mobile technologies. So you basically put your phone in, you're going to have a Gear VR or a cardboard, but you'll be able to put your phone in, call your expert buddy that knows how to build a deck at Home Depot, and then they can help you right there make the right decision on the wood, on the paint, on the drills, and that's the way we're going to get it out to the masses. At least that's one of the ways that I think is going to be important.
Yeah, I mean, we put Gear VR at CES, Upload, Sundance. Verizon put it at the Super Bowl. We put it at the NBA All-Star Game. We put it at South by Southwest for 10 days. 100 doors of Best Buy demo in February. At the end of this week, that'll go to 350 doors of Best Buy demo in probably every major city in the country. By the end of the summer, it'll be in all the large format Best Buys around the country. We can go and get a swivel chair demo. Get to see some awesome new content from Cirque du Soleil. Get to play a game. Very simple, very easy to use, and giving tens of thousands of people their first VR experience. And we think it's a really big deal in terms of letting people try it, for sure. And lots of products have that kind of trial experience. Buying a car, right? Watching a TV in a store. So this is quite normal thing, and it's just a matter of getting it out there.
And with those demonstrations, and especially as we're moving to very active VR experiences where you can move around a large space or you might even be wielding controllers, there is, I think, maybe a possible risk of lawsuits getting in the way. Do you guys see this being an issue to adoption? Do you think there could be some problems here in terms of all of the things that need to be signed or agreed to?
Ben, I'm going to stop you. Nobody on this stage is going to comment on that.
Just comment. Why lawsuits? I just don't understand the lawsuit. Where is it coming? Liabilities, you mean?
Liabilities, yes.
First of all,
Hey, Palmer's trying to help you out, man. Come on.
no, I think it's an issue because I every time I speak to the media, especially mass media, they don't know anything about what we're trying to do, and they need to be educated. They are all coming to me with this motion sickness thing, and I tell them, look, motion sickness is true. it's been there in the 90s, and we worked for 20 years, and now it's really not there any longer. And it's definitely not going to be there when it's going to be in consumer VR. So developer kits, it's for developers. That's why Oculus sells developer kits. That's why, the innovator edition of Gear VR, the actual consumer product of all these are coming, later this year or next year. I can tell you that when we make our motion tracking work with every one of these, we work with Cardboard, we work with Gear VR, we work with Oculus, and we work with Vive, we work with everyone. We eliminated, at least at our level, we eliminated motion sickness, and we really don't have any other liabilities that we see. And we added, a border that allows the consumer can put and take responsibility for the play zone. So you can, in setup, you can set it up to avoid your chair or your bed or whatever in a dorm. All that will be taken care of. It's going to be just like any other medium. And it's not going to be a big risk, but it's true that I'm the only one who can answer this kind of question.
I would build on Palmer's answer. I would just say, when the phonograph was invented, everyone thought the killer use case of the phonograph was going to be recording the words of the dying, the last sentences. That was going to be the use case. And I think we're kind of, from a popular media and rules and regulations standpoint, in a similar place where we've got a lot to sort out. And then back to what Palmer said.
I agree.
Great. Well, I'll take a stab at this next one, but it may end up the same way. For anybody here, what's your answer to critics who say that VR's effects on human physiology is not well studied enough to be put out to the mass market?
I would say they don't know what they're talking about, because it's been out there for longer than the phone. The same people that are saying that I put my phone to my ear, they don't have any research to back it up. And the same thing is, we've been doing VR, and Palmer, talking about going to USC. The VR being in use in military, in medical, simulation, medical training. It's been in PTSD treatment for almost 30 years now. There's so much information about it. It's nonsense.
Anybody else?
Nobody's going to say it.
Let's try one more here.
Carl told me why Amir was
Can we
on
go
the
back
panel,
to the
and he's
in-store
fulfilling
demos?
that perfectly.
The in-store
Yeah.
demos
Clay,
question?
let's go back to in-store demos.
Yeah. I'm actually happy to talk about in-store demos if you'd like. One approach would be make it really easy for anyone to get a taste of VR. Build something out of an inexpensive material.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, we could do that.
that.
Yeah, we should do that. I actually think, to be clear, Cardboard and what it provides is a taste, is a glimpse of what you experience in. Sorry, guys. Is just a taste of what you experience in an Oculus Rift or a Vive. Sorry, I don't know why this keeps going out. I maybe just have a hand mic. Yeah, thanks. Just a taste of what you experience in one of the higher-end systems, but I think it's enough to get people interested, right? I think a lot of people have had their first, oh, this is cool moment, and that drives future interest in higher-end systems and so on. I think the other thing is, how many of you, when you got your first DK1, DK2, when you had friends over, you're like, you got to see this, right? It's like, no one did that?
We don't have
no
friends.
one, right?
Everybody.
Yeah, everyone did that, right? And so I think there's going to be a natural just enthusiasm from people who've seen it once, and these devices are going to be in market soon, right? 9 months from now, and I think that will drive as much growth, interest, and so on as having some awkward in-store demo. Though I think there's a place for that. So anyway,
One question I've had is, how do we call Cardboard in its current incarnation and what DK2 or Vive are doing all the same thing? Is that confusing for consumers?
I think it's there's a spectrum. People ask about what will perfect VR, or what is real VR like, and is it real VR when you can still tell that you're in a headset and not experiencing reality directly? Again, we have no illusions that Cardboard provides the same level of experience, right? I think
I just mean from a marketing perspective, like communicate. It's not a dig. It's more. Of
Sure.
How do we explain this to regular people, right? Because they get this, festival experience.
You want
they
me
get
to
the
say how
cardboard.
we explain it to regular people?
what's that?
Do you want me to say how we explain it? Because we have to talk
I would love that.
for the purpose of taking it away from you explaining the Google angle. of things.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. I mean, I'm happy.
So
to
we,
come
we,
back.
we have to explain cardboard because we work with cardboard, which the good thing about cardboard is allows you to use any phone. You don't have to be locked to a specific phone. So when I go to people and again, we went to New York and we had 4 different stops for the media. The first one was cardboard because cardboard is the least threatening. Right? You take the cardboard. First of all, I showed them that I just bought it for $5 from Amazon. They love that. They take it, they put it on, and they see the experience. You're running in the streets. They immediately realize, okay, VR is something different than what we imagined. They don't, especially for those that never ever experienced anything like it. It is an icebreaker. For me, for a developer, for all your platforms, it's an icebreaker. Then I can persuade that nice lady from this marketing publication that for her the hairdo was just an investment of $500 to come in and put Gear VR on, knowing that what you just experienced on cardboard, it's making it worth it. Now she's putting gear on. Now she's having an experience. Now we had the Wild. We got the Wild from Fox. We put her into the Wild in gear. So step 1, step 2. Then we took her to the DK2, and then we continue with our multi-user and the virtual commerce experience.
Yeah.
But the point is, every piece of it is critical. The fact that there are almost in 1 million hands is helping you more than all the marketing dollars that anybody allowed you to spend.
Thank you, Amir. I mean, we've been focused on making VR, a taste of VR, accessible to anyone, easy, approachable, and so on. And in fact, we made a lot of very conscious decisions early on with cardboard about the actual design of it. It does not have a head strap. It won't have a head strap because, right, it should be easy to put on, take off. And just as importantly, right, we know that the motion of your torso, you can rotate about 1/4 the speed of your head, makes it a much more comfortable experience. We obviously had the decision to make wider field of view optics when we started, but we made them narrow, it was more comfortable and so on. And so we've been thoughtful about making sure that cardboard is a good introduction, again, to the ramp of VR. I'm not sure what specific word we use for it other than that, but that's how we think about it at Google.
All right. Well, let's continue along on our way here. See if I can go for 3 strikes. Adult virtual reality, a.k.a. porn. Who wants to talk about it? Nobody?
I think Amir has some thoughts on this subject.
Well, so this is the
I do.
This is the crux of the question.
This is the part where I need to go, I think.
And I mean,
I tell you, just to make it very simple and quick, it's all about, go back in history and you look any new medium and every medium in the past, porn is a key driver. Now, for some reason, or maybe for good reason, I don't know, but in Japan, VR and porn is big. Palmer will not say anything, but he knows that a lot of his dev kids went to Japan, or at least, I don't know if he knows, but we know. And I'm letting you know. And they went to Japan, but not only Japan, people are going to work on it because it's going to make a lot of money. I can tell you that we are talking now, not porn, but, it's interesting enough. Can you imagine our virtual commerce, our virtual retail application for the Victoria's Secret brand? Just imagine that great experience of shopping for Victoria's Secret product.
Hey, so back to in-store demos.
Yeah.
in Victoria's Secret.
Well, but for marketing.
Oh, yeah.
No, I was just trying to change the subject. Yeah.
There's a lot of other good use cases.
Go next.
A lot of other good use cases.
Well,
out there.
so this is kind of my point here. The reluctance to address this, which is surely, I mean, the adult industry is not a small industry by any stretch of the imagination. Do you think it's potentially a mistake to, I mean, is it just out of necessity that big brands can't necessarily be associated with that industry that you have to leave it behind, or does it not actually have value in your minds?
I feel like the next question you're going to ask is like, can you guys give us a list of patents and trademarks you may be infringing on?
Yeah. There's a progression here. I'm scared of the next question.
Yeah.
All right.
I see. Actually, yeah.
Let's keep it going then. So something to think about. These
Hey,
guys
Ben,
aren't going to
hey,
do
Ben.
it. Somebody else should.
When are you going to move from Philadelphia?
Oh boy. I'll put that website up soon so you guys can get an answer to that question. All right. So when it comes to performance for VR applications, if you consider the smartphone, let's say, somebody doesn't optimize their just normal smartphone app for one phone over another, and somebody downloads it and they play it, and it runs slowly, it loads slowly. It's not a good user experience. But when it comes to VR, those same mistakes go from just something that's not fun to something that can actually be dizzying and nauseating, and it's not a fun experience by any stretch of the imagination. Do you think that it's necessary to have some minimum bar of performance to make sure that people who are getting their first demos aren't experiencing something that actually makes them sick and turns them off for the rest of, they never want to buy one?
I think we're beyond the point of turning people off to the point of never wanting to try it again. Like maybe a year or 2 or 3, it was a much more fragile environment where virtual reality was new enough that you could potentially turn enough people off to really hurt the industry. At this point, I think it's very likely that people will just write it off as a very bad virtual reality experience. And it may take them longer to seek out better virtual reality. They may not have immediate interest. But in the long run, for the long-term future of virtual reality, I think we are largely past that mark where you have to worry about killing people's interest forever.
Yeah. And I think one of the smart things that Oculus and Samsung have done, the kind of comfort index in the Gear VR apps, right? It gives you an immediate read on what kind of experience you're going to have. And I think there's an even kind of lower level bar that you can set to make sure that frame rate and so on is performing. You have a good experience. I think ultimately you need to give developers the tools to measure and understand how their apps are performing, and also educate developers about the importance of not dropping frames and maintaining 60 frames per second and not freezing head tracking and all of the things that you just have to get right. And one of the things I find very exciting about forums like this is it's an opportunity to kind of train up the world on this, share learnings and so on. And I think it's kind of on all of us to help the world get better at developing these applications. We're not there yet.
So as we're approaching the launch of this stuff, we have some obvious use cases. We have social, we have gaming, there's video. What do you guys see that is a really cool potential use case that's just not receiving all that much attention as we kind of lead up to a big launch, if any?
I think the use cases are, it's very focused on entertainment right now. It's of course right now because of the current generation of hardware, we are on mobile again, specifically mobile. We are focused on movies and 360 video type experiences. Obviously, both Oculus and the Vive are focusing on gaming, on their desktop applications. But I look at we just crossed 16,000 to 16,100 developers that downloaded and working with us and told us what is the application they're working on, not the application, the specific category, the industry. And I can tell you less than 20% are entertainment. The majority, actually not the majority, but over 35%, it's in education and training. The next category is health, digital health. People are developing applications that I think are going to revolutionize healthcare with VR. I think that what I've seen people are doing for autism, if you saw, I have goosebumps right now when I think about what this is going to do to autism education, the personalization of treatment for kids with any kind of behavior issues. And that's just the beginning. I think you have education, training, you got healthcare. These are the applications. I recommend all of you to find a guy called Walter Greenleaf, which is probably speaking in one of the panels. He's my advisor to everything to do with digital health. And he's been doing it for over 25 years with Stanford. And he is by far going to be the one that's going to lead the best advancements in VR use.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, the enterprise applications, enterprise simulation, I think that all of these devices are disruptive, low-cost simulation technologies that can, destroy what's going on now in the enterprise simulation space. And there's a huge opportunity to change how people work and learn and all those things. The second, I think that Palmer's friend Shari from Sundance, right, was really a pioneer in the VR filmmaking. That's such a huge medium, and it's going to be really, really interesting for a long time. And then the third one, which I don't think gets very much attention, although I like to say it in these forums, hoping somebody smarter than me comes up with it, is sort of like the Instagram, Twitter, like an application or a service that is native to the platform that it was born from, and you can't really imagine it on a different platform. Those types of solutions for VR where it's like, oh, this is what you use VR for. Like camera phone, 10 years until Instagram showed up. Now it's like, oh, that's what you use a camera phone for. I got it. Okay, cool. And so that's what I'm hoping for, out of this community as this scales up.
I'm going to be contrarian. I'm going to say that there are very few applications where virtual reality isn't getting attention. Like to say, where are things not getting enough attention? Things like PTSD treatment, autism treatment, mental health treatment, enterprise, simulation, military, medical. I'd say they're all getting tons of attention. It's not, there's no media blackout on these things. And in fact, I think they're probably getting more media attention than they would even, I want to say deserve, but I guess than they would normally warrant just on the size of their market. I mean, you could dominate the entire medical virtual reality market. There's a lot of dollars in it, but there's not going to be a lot of companies, especially with the current regulatory environment and how these kinds of treatments go out there. There's going to be a couple players making a ton of money, but it's not going to be a lot of headsets. It's not going to be a lot of developers. That pie is going to be a decent pie split between a few people, probably led by people in the medical industry who already know how to navigate that crazy regulatory environment. Same thing for enterprise, same thing largely for military simulation. Despite that, it gets a ton of attention, more so than the entertainment and I'd say education fits in here too. They get a lot of attention compared to the probably 1 to 2% of the market that they're going to get. And there's two ways to think of it, in the long term and in the short term. In the very short term, entertainment is going to absolutely dominate the things that are done in virtual reality. It's going to be by far the largest segment for sure. In the very long term, entertainment and education are probably going to be the two biggest things that everyone uses. Military, enterprise, all that. It's going to remain a very tiny market as a whole. And that's one of the reasons we're seeing virtual reality coming back so fast. It's not because of enterprise, military, or medical. If those industries were enough to drive virtual reality or be a significant part of the industry, they could have driven the technological advances themselves. But that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing companies like Samsung get interested because finally there's consumers, hundreds of millions, potentially billions of consumers who want to use this in their everyday life. And enterprise, military, emergency response training just doesn't fit into their everyday life. It's going to end up being probably a very small portion of the pie. And that's one of the reasons that we see the military and medicine moving towards standard consumer equipment, with different encryption technologies, and making applications that make it more of a fit. But pilots are using iPads in the cockpit now. Doctors are using iPads for all kinds of medical uses and checking patient documents. That never would have.
Barack Obama's BlackBerry.
Yeah, and that didn't happen, and it's extremely secure. But the technology wasn't driven by government or by the military or by medicine. It was driven by consumers, and they latched on to save money and do a better job. I think VR is going to kind of follow a similar path. Consumer VR is what's going to drive all of these things. Everyone else is going to kind of hitch on the back and make quite a bit of money off it. But I don't think that they're missing out on media attention that they warrant.
I agree with that. The shift that I see that I think is so exciting is, whereas maybe in the 90s, VR was like, oh, how could we apply this kind of bizarre, narrow technology to some weird use case like oil drilling or like automotive design. It's like, how many people design cars? Like, not that many. Instead, the kind of world is now asking the question, okay, virtual reality, what is the use case for reality? And thinking about the use cases in reality. And it turns out reality is useful for a whole lot of things. And I think we see that in the diversity of,
Well, I'll be a
non-controversial statement. And obviously, right, it's not only what is the use case for reality, but things that you couldn't do without synthetic realities, training and so on, that would be impossible or costly or violent or ugly or other ways to actually do in real life. And so I think that mindset shift is one of the reasons we see such broad interest from, and we've hit on all the things here.
If I can counter that, just, I'd say it's not just that there's been a mindset shift. You said, in the 90s, people were trying to shoehorn virtual reality into these industries because it was a hot new thing. I would say we actually suffer from that problem a lot more. Like, there's a lot of sane people using it for reasonable things, but I'd say there's more people now trying to shoehorn virtual reality into places it doesn't really have a place than even in the 90s, because it is much bigger than it was back then. And one of the things that we have to deal with is...
My point was more about there being now a pull, right?
Yes.
It may be an over-pull instead of
like most people are pulling in the right direction. It's not just this group pulling in the wrong direction. But I mean, it is worth thinking about. There are a lot of people, I think, trying to shoehorn virtual reality into their latest thing, whether it's their marketing campaign or their movie campaign, or trying to make it part of their fitness tool. And they're not doing it because it's really a good fit. Virtual reality is not a magical cure-all that makes your product relevant or good. What? It's just the hippest new thing. And a lot of people are trying to hitch off, making it that latest new thing. And like, look, our startup, we have a VR port of our application. It's poorly implemented. It doesn't add anything, but it's virtual reality.
Social, local, mobile, and VR.
Exactly.
Done.
Solo mobile.
Invest. Awesome. Solo
Slow
mo
mover.
VR. Slow vor VR. I don't know. Anyway.
But I mean
we can do the anagram later. Yeah.
But I feel like that is something that's something to be aware of in VR. That VR is not a perfect solution to all problems in every business, in every piece of software, like some people imagine it is. It really is only a good fit for certain things. And as it gets better, there's going to be industries that today don't make any sense that eventually do make sense.
So just like to let everybody know as we move into our next question, I'm going to try to save some time at the end for questions. So keep your seats. We still have a couple more questions, but we're going to try to get some from the audience. So start thinking about them, and let's try to keep them oriented toward the rise of consumer VR. So that opportunity will come soon. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is actually probably applies to a lot of people in this room, and maybe people who will hear from outside of this room who are kind of on the edge of this industry, very interested, but maybe not necessarily working in it. Maybe they want to be working in it. The industry doesn't build itself, and while we have a whole bunch of talented people who have jumped in there, there's surely going to be even more talent just from an employment standpoint needed to power this crazy curve that this industry is on. What would you say to somebody who says, I'm just a technical person, but I want to get involved in the market? What is kind of a really good entrance way for them to start learning? Where could they fit? What kind of people do you guys find that you need in your companies that you maybe don't have enough of?
It comes down to the ability to develop and publish applications, which hopefully are going to be killer apps for mobile VR. For me, if you are Facebook or Oculus and you have the money to spend on AAA titles for PC, that's going to be, in the market, within the next 2 to 3 years, meaning enough install base of PCs, that's great. But my message always, for the last, over 18 months, from the moment we realized that mobile VR is real, is just get yourself up and running on developing, for now, Android. We don't know what the hell these people from Cupertino are doing, but for now, Android, between Google, Samsung, every other mobile OEM is in a race now, chasing Samsung. The bottom line is focus on developing applications. You will have hundreds of millions of VR-enabled phones in the hands of consumers within the next 2 to 3 years. That's how you're going to monetize.
My perspective, what's exciting
That's a very aggressive target.
I didn't know about those plans. What's exciting about VR for me is, I think for the last kind of 10 years, a lot of what happened, the rise of tech companies, internet companies, is you're going to go study computer science if you wanted to participate in the core of that, software development and so on. And VR is so broad in a couple dimensions that like electrical engineering and really understanding things all the way down to the silicon is directly important to the future of VR. As are other kind of arcane disciplines, optics and systems integration and so on. They're the more obvious things, computer vision, high-performance graphics and rendering and so on. What's just as exciting about kind of the breadth of technical skills needed to participate in VR is actually the importance of the creative side, again. And I think we're going to see a real kind of renaissance in creative direction, 3D animation and rendering, film. And if you're, I don't remember if it's left brain or right brain, but if you're more creatively inclined than technically inclined, I think there's tremendous opportunity, whether you're in film school or learning how to get great things from Maya or RenderMan or whatever, to really go deep on how do you build beautiful, engaging experiences for this new medium. And so just the breadth of the skill set needed, I think, to bring up not only the hardware but the software to actually run it, and then I think just as importantly, beautiful, compelling content, whether that's kind of more cinematography or interactive games and so on. I think it's going to require a very broad range of skill sets, and I think it's pretty cool for that reason.
On the angle of the creativity, the whole world is sort of oriented in this rectangle, right? A stage is a rectangle, and television is a rectangle, and a movie theater is a rectangle. And so you go and try to film a concert in VR, and it's like, oh, I don't know, it's not as good as like it probably could have been, right? So it's as you think about the storytelling, just changing everyone's frame from how you tell a story that's around you, whether it's a game or a film or educational or whatever, an interface. It's just a paradigm shift as we've, 80 years of maybe longer of thinking of things in rectangles. And it's such a kind of weird, warped thing that I've kind of got myself into here, so I'm going to stop now.
I'd say it's the people in the games industry that have that broad breadth of skills, the people who understand hardware deeply, that also understand creativity deeply, and who understand how to make real-time immersive 3D environments. I mean, there's going to be people from outside the games industry getting into virtual reality for sure, but I think that what you're going to see more of is people from the games industry getting into other parts of VR, whether it's real-time cinema, education, or even, health, military. All these people, I think, are going to come from the games industry for the next few years, not because they're necessarily, the perfect skill set, but because they're the only people out there in the world with a very closely matching skill set to what you need to make really great virtual reality content. That might change over time. Like you're starting to see schools already having their film programs considerations for immersive media. And that's going to be really interesting to have people coming out of college and into the workforce with knowledge of virtual reality and creating content from the start. But the games industry is powering every facet of the virtual reality industry right now, even outside of games. So those are the people that, if you want to get into virtual reality, you should get into all of the things that are related to games. Like you said, learning how to use tools, learning how to tell stories, learning how to make really beautiful things. It's basically the same skill set right now.
So with that, we've got about 15 minutes left, and I'd love to get some questions from the audience. Bruce, can we get some mics set up? Bruce, do we want to get lines going, or what's the best way?
Yes, let's go ahead and do that. Let's have some people come up with lines and
get a line in each of the center columns here for people with questions.
Appreciate it.
And just a reminder, we are focusing on the rise of consumer VR.
And other controversial subjects that Ben decides.
Apparently.
So controversial. Starting over here.
Lee from Passing Lane Media. One of the things that I've been looking at are early opportunities. Obviously, as Luckey eloquently put it, we're all going to hitch onto the back end of VR and monetize. I find it interesting that we have, I'm going to say probably 90% male audience here. We have a 100% male panel, and no one wanted to discuss adult entertainment. It's not my industry. I'm mainly automotive. But I think it's interesting. One of the things that I look at is sort of the VHS and beta war, and the fact that adult entertainment, I think, back to VHS. Everyone ended up with VHS players. Beta, although it was a better product, fell to the wayside. I think we may see that with Apple and their closed, I guess, system that they have, and it makes it very difficult to put files on. And whereas on Android open source platform, you can drag and drop files. There you go. There's no one locking out the VR content, so you don't have these gatekeepers like you do with Apple. Do you guys see adult entertainment as a major driver like it was with VHS and beta and like it was with e-commerce adoption early on? People were not spending a lot of money with e-commerce in the early 90s. Once adult content came on, people were quick to put their credit cards in. So do you guys see the adult entertainment industry as something that's going to drive VR for consumers forward or not? I guess that's the question.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I think Ben's question was not good enough.
It's also worth noting that the VHS and Betamax example isn't bulletproof. People often bring it up, but then they forget the much more recent example of HD DVD versus Blu-ray. In that case, it was the other way around, and HD DVD, as we all know, very much lost. That's not to say that, that's not to say that it's necessarily an argument for one way or the other, but it's not necessarily apparent that strong support by the standard providers for a particular kind of entertainment is critical to the success of that technology.
The articles I've read say that the influence of the adult industry is overblown in size, and the influence on it is overblown. So I just it's not something I spend any time thinking about.
Any other industry will they'll have to examine the possibilities, what it's going to do for their industry. And if it's good for them, they're going to make money. Of course, they're going to come into it. But let's not talk about it too much. It's enough.
All right, let's go to our next question. Over here.
Okay, I thought he was going to ask it, but then he went in a different direction. 90% men, 100% white men up on the stage. This is a brand new industry with an opportunity not to look like every other industry. And I think I heard from you, Palmer, something that worries me, which is if the gaming industry is going to take this over, the gaming industry has had a terrible track record in terms of diversity, a terrible track record in terms of treating women equally. It's really been a disaster. And to the point that the gentleman from Google made, if you guys actually want to make good, compelling content in this space, it has to be content that's for everybody, and it's not going to be engineers. It's not going to be people who are good with polygons. It's going to be storytellers, or we won't buy the headsets. So each of you have companies that either you own or work for. Are you guys making attempts to actually diversify your workforce, diversify your creatives, and not look like the same old bunch of white guys?
I emphatically agree with the spirit of the question. I emphatically agree with the spirit of the question, and I agree. And I am but one person from our team, and not everyone looks like me. And I think it's going to be incredibly important to bring something meaningful to the world, and by the world I mean everyone, right? To bring something that everyone finds value in, that resonates with everyone, to have a very diverse group of people bringing that technology and those experiences to bear. That's certainly our goal at Google, and I'd be shocked if it wasn't the goal of the others up here as well.
Yeah, I mean, to the end, Milk VR is being programmed as a mainstream media outlet. We just launched 3 separate series with Refinery 29, which, raise your hand if you know what Refinery 29 is in the room. It's going to be pretty uniform who doesn't know and who does know of that group. And so we're trying really hard to make a user experience that's easy, content that appeals to different groups of people, and think of things just beyond the sort of typical sort of young male gamer world that is very natural and obviously desirable for VR as an emerging medium, but is not the only market.
We are fully focused on enabling, for commercial reasons, to enable content to be focused on women. And the main reason is that women makes most of the decisions, what people buy at home, what families buy. And whether it's buying entertainment products, or even buying specifically for families, buying education, or just buying, like e-commerce. And what we've done, we specifically teamed with a company. We were talking to both Omnicom and Publicis, which is the two largest advertising companies in the world. And then Publicis gave us a creative director, which is their creative director that runs VR. And Seppi and Nitro, again, one of the largest advertising companies in the world, she's a brilliant storyteller. And she is, without a doubt, a woman. And she is, without a doubt, focused on telling stories about fashion and telling stories and stories about family and telling stories about brands. And she believes, and specifically the whole Seppi and Nitro team believe, all the way up to the new owners of the company with Publicis, that there is a unique opportunity in telling stories and telling stories to their consumers and their consumers, to their clients' consumers, and that is the majority of those are women.
To give a non-fashion example, the producer of our NBA Keys to the Game show is named Nancy Bennett from 2-Bit Circus. She's one of the best filmmakers out there, so hopefully she gets some work off of that. Plug. Nancy.
It's also worth noting that this isn't a short-term problem. I mean, it's easy to say, we support diversity. Yes, we want to have more women or more of any group in the virtual reality industry. But I do stand by what I said, where virtual reality is going to be driven largely by the games industry, not because of the attitude of the games industry or because of the people they hire. The reality is that most people with the skills required to make real-time 3D environments and to make compelling stories are in that games industry. A lot of whether you see it as a positive or a negative, a lot of that character is going to come into the virtual reality industry. If we want more people in the VR industry, I think there's a big opportunity as it expands to more people than just gamers. But when I said that it's based on the games industry, it doesn't mean that that's the content that's going to come out of it. I think that and if you're a good creative and you're in the games industry, you can make content for any market. It doesn't have to be for young white gamer guys. It can be for anybody. But the industry also isn't going to change overnight. If there's a certain composition, especially if it's dominated by that, by that group, it's going to be very difficult to achieve real balance without, trying to solve the core of the problem and looking at it in a more long-term way. And building on what Amir says, I think that it's going to be, a lot of it is going to be market-driven. Women are going to want to use virtual reality too. It's not going to be just a thing for men. And while there might be a lot more men in the games industry right now, as virtual reality expands, it's natural that there will be content that appeal to both genders or to women or to any other group, because that's going to be the way to make money.
Yeah, but we must do some serious kind of division between, you have desktop VR and you have mobile VR. I agree with Palmer on the desktop VR. It is going to be gaming. Only gamers will be willing to spend the kind of money it takes to buy those PCs.
That's actually not what I'm saying at all.
No, I didn't say I didn't say that's what you're saying. I'm saying that's what I'm saying. But I'm going with you,
but you said, as Palmer said,
fact that, as Palmer said, on the gaming. Now, gaming, desktop VR will be driven, in my belief is strictly from gamers. I believe there's other applications, but the majority will be gamers and gaming developer. And for me, in mobile, you look at who uses, even who plays games on mobile devices, it comes down to there's a very big percentage, if not equal percentage, women use entertainment on mobile devices. But again, you go and look at what VR is enabling. I think women, both for development and development of content and applications and across all industries, I believe in mobile VR, gaming will be less than 20%. And I put interactive, which is what's going to actually make VR successful, an interactive medium. It's all going to be in mobile, and it's all going to be across the board. Every application, every industry can benefit from VR.
Thanks, Amir. Let's go to our next question over here.
So to follow up on an earlier question, I guess this is the adult side of the room, whether you feel comfortable acknowledging it or not, VR porn is being made, and it is definitely awesome. So do you think the industry is going to continue to passively allow it, or do you expect that VR leaders are going to start actively blocking adult content on VR systems?
The Rift is an open platform. We don't control what software can run on it. And that's a big deal.
Thank you. That was good.
That seems to be all. We'll take a question over here.
Yeah, it's going in a different direction. Can you discuss the recommendation of minimum age requirement, how that might change?
No.
Palmer says no. Anybody else? Minimum age requirement?
Or not requirement, recommendation.
Recommendation, sure, whatever.
The way, when people ask me at festivals and they want to put like a little kid in it, I say that the lens distance is sized for adults, and it works better for that, and that's why we try to sell it to adults.
Got a question over here.
Hey, so I have a question about something that was not touched upon as much, which is the combination of 360 cameras and then consumer VR allowing us to capture memories, like personal memories, photos and videos. I was wondering when you saw the revolution coming and the more content, personal content being created using that, and actually curious whether Samsung had any updates about the 360 project, 360 camera project that was mentioned in the past.
That was kind of came back around the side there on me. I mean, you know, definitely like big fan of the 360. You're looking at me in a very funny way.
Yeah, I would like the update. I'd like to know what's happening.
It's going to be awesome. No, I mean, I think that in the production of 360 video is very labor intensive today. Stitching, you know, different video streams together, and certainly not in the realm of, you know, your average user. And so the evolution towards consumer grade, you know, live stitch 360 video is a huge opportunity in the space, and presents exactly that vision of, you know, saving your memories and like really being able to experience it. I think it's going to be a big deal. You know, maybe not this year exactly, but you know, it's a big deal.
Do you have like how far away are we from that? Do you have any estimate?
You talk to the camera guys. They got to hustle.
Not the project specifically,
Yeah.
but like personal memories being captured.
No, I don't mean our camera guys. I mean camera guys in general. I mean, I think it's a technically complex problem. It's way beyond my expertise, but.
And you got the top camera companies jumping into it by making acquisitions. You have Samsung jumping into it. You got Sony jumping into it. Everybody is going to make the hardware now. It's clear. There's an install base coming with mobile. They're going to make the hardware. And specifically for memories, there's a bunch of companies that are already developing, you know, your mom and your grandma to remember her, the pets. I have like 3 different companies that are working on, you know, the memories of my pets. It's amazingly.
That's a more niche use of VR. You know, it's one of the spaces and the applications of VR that I am personally most excited about. Not only capturing personal memories, but experiences and events and places that are important. And I think, you know, somewhat unfortunately, we're kind of limited on the camera side by like the laws of physics, where if you actually wanted to design a camera that could look with 2 eyes in every direction, you just kind of run out of like atoms in space. And so I think there's actually going to have to be some pretty deep innovation on the software side, so that content creators aren't spending 80% of their time fixing stitching artifacts and, you know, removing the seam that, you know, cuts the person in half and so on. And that's a big, deep, hard problem, and I'm hoping someone will solve it.
Well, it's a problem that has to be solved if you're going to have consumers capturing content. You can't expect them to have production-level quality stuff. So you're going to need to have something that can actually, rather than just, you know, capture a bunch of pictures and present them as a stereo feed to the eyes and let your brain work it out. You need to actually have hardware that can understand the environment, what the depth is, and properly capture it and then recreate it. And then another side little note related to that is I think it's going to be interesting once we have proper 360-degree 3D capture technology to see what that does to our perception of other forms of media, like capturing events with pictures or videos. If you look back, you know, a few decades, it's really interesting to see things where we don't have videos of a lot of different events because people just didn't have video. You only had it of important events first, and then you had it available to everybody. And if you go back even further, there's things we don't have pictures of, or, you know, but the first pictures were of important things, important people, important events. I think it's going to follow a similar trend in virtual reality, where first you're going to have important events, you know, like sporting events or, you know, speeches.
This panel.
I mean, this panel, yeah.
Is anybody capturing this in 360 out there?
But those, I mean, like, not necessarily a great example, but like Facebook's F8 conference, they had a 360-degree capture system set up and streaming that in real time. That's where we're going to see this technology first, and then eventually it's going to go to the people, and it's going to become accessible to people to capture their own personal memories. I look forward to a future, maybe a few decades from now, where we look back and say, God, until the 2020s, we like didn't have any immersive captures. Like it's all just pictures and videos.
No, I think we'll
it's hard to
actually
understand what it was like to be alive back then.
We'll look back on the last 10 years, and until we have that device, the kind of memory capture device, as this time where, oh my God, it's like we lost out on capturing a birthday party or that special event or that moment in history, and I don't know when it'll be. What's that?
The Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl, right? The Olympics, but I think just as importantly, something personal and important, a wedding, something like that, and we'll feel kind of like we feel now when something important wasn't caught on video or film. This sense of, oh man, I wish we'd fully captured it. So
totally agree.
Yeah, I look forward to that day when we're there. I think unfortunately, in part because of the laws of physics, we're a few years away, at least for the truly consumer grade integrated product.
So ready to lament.
You're ready to what?
Lament.
Oh no, I know. I am really ready to lament.
Hey guys, I'm really sorry for everybody in line, but we are out of time. Let's give our panelists a round of applause here.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you.
All right. I'd like to give another round of thanks here. If we can, all right, thank you. We have our panelists go off the stage. If you want to carry on conversations, let's let folks get off the stage first, please, before we bombard them with questions and mob them. Very good. Fantastic. So at this time, this room is going to be kind of nothing going on for a little while. Across the hall that way, there's a Leap Motion workshop. After that, a Unity Gaming workshop, so be on the lookout for that. In this room at 2 p.m., Joel Ludwig from Valve will be giving a talk, so see you then for that talk. And if you have not yet received your badge, make sure to make your way back to the registration desk and get your badge. You will not be allowed to get to the expo hall to see all the cool VR demos going on without your badge. All right. Thank you very much. See you back here at 2 p.m. 2 p.m.